Hello, everyone. Welcome back to 10 Minutes with Barb and Ron. Once again, I wasn't paying attention when Ron was giving me my cues. So what are we going to talk about today, Ron?
Well, in Ohio, we've got the 11 district narrative that everybody's kind of working on. And really what's happening for them is happening for everybody across Ohio. So one of the big things I think that sometimes we don't think about, and this is going to be our topic, and that's leaders. And the focus that we put on leaders. So to start out with, I have I just love quotes. So here's a quote from Ray Jorgensen, in case anybody knows him. And it says, "The conversation is the relationship. Relationship building is the number one skill." So when a person walks away, have they felt like they were heard? You ever thought about that?
Right.
And the worst thing is if they walk away and feel like they weren't heard. So how do you measure that? Does your husband always feel like he's heard?
We don't want to go down that.
Oh, okay. Okay. How about at work? When you're working with a teacher, how do you know that they know you listened?
Right.
What are those signs?
I think one of the indications is how deep that conversation is able to get. Like, are we hearing each other and going back and forth? The other thing is, if they get busy trying something that we talked about, that we heard each other. But if, you were hoping to see something and it just isn't happening, maybe the message wasn't heard. Maybe we didn't connect. Maybe we weren't clear. And so, and Ron, I have to say, I am, what comes out of my mouth and what's in my brain are two different things. I sometimes don't think that I am as clear in how I explain or talk to somebody, and ensure that I heard what they were saying. But in my brain, I've got all these things going. It's like, wow, I didn't know that was going on with her. I didn't realize that she needed help with this. I didn't realize she didn't have these materials. But maybe I'm not as verbal about that. So I think, as leaders and it's because we're busy, maybe it was a stop in the hallway. And sometimes you just have to take that time to make that connection, to ensure that.
So, when I talk to you, Barb, a lot of times I think, Barb Gentili Green, she speaks from the heart. How does that make you feel when I say that?
Well, that makes me feel good. I don't know that sometimes I'm not sure I always do that, but right. Because that, to me, that sounds genuine. Like if somebody's speaking from their heart, that is a genuine person, genuine experience, I guess. So, leadership, you had talked in the last 10 minutes with Barb and Ron, about that focused goal. Leadership, it is the leader's duty. It's their job to have a focused goal so we're not spinning and wasting our time. It's too bad they don't teach that more as we get our administrative licenses. If they'd thought about universal design for learning, that the big thing is that focused goal. To be a successful leader, I think we have to know that if people don't know what the goal is, then we're going to spin and spin. So I love it that in the last session you talked about that's going to be one of the focuses that you guys do. And that's great. And another idea. Can I add something to that though, Ron? Because we were just talking about this in our meeting the other day, is that we have a clear goal, but when the everyday experiences of a school, being in a school building or running a school district, all these other things get in your brain because you have to. And you have to bring yourself back to that clear goal. Otherwise you get swamped in the day-to-day logistics.
So how many leaders have you known that you can have a conversation with and maybe your viewpoints are totally different, okay? You and I experienced that right before we did our first taping. However, we're both leaders, and we work with leaders.
So you and I can talk from two different viewpoints and two different belief systems, and neither one get angry with each other. I think.
No, you're right.
I'm right that I think, or I'm right that we don't?
You're right that we don't.
So we accept each other's viewpoints, even though we may think the other person's viewpoint's way out there. At least we accept it and listen, and we may not support that viewpoint. However, we're open to listen. And who knows, maybe we'll be swayed, maybe not. But that's okay.
Yeah.
So I got another quote here that I really like, and those that are on the Ohio UDL Collaborative have seen this one before because I put it on there every once in a while in between all the other quotes. The strength of the team is each individual member. The strength of each member is the team, by Phil Jackson. And I just love that.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Some people don't believe in teams and they believe that they can do everything. And when you're doing something that's across Ohio or across the district, you got to have a team. Not any one person has the strength to do it all.
Right.
They just don't.
Yes. We talked about this a long time ago when I left the state support team, because that was one of the things that I used to think is that I have to know all this stuff, when really I have to have a team that knows this stuff, and I will pull from my resources wherever I need to get my work done. But, it's always amazing to me, talk about perspectives, that how each individual person perceives something. And when they talk about it, I'll be like, oh, I never thought of it that way. That's a really great idea to incorporate in. I would never have thought of that, And so I love that quote. I don't know if I've read that before on our UDL Collaborative minutes. I guess I'm going to have to read more carefully.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, yeah, just one more time. The strength of the team is each individual member, and the strength of each member is the team. And honest to goodness, I think with the Ohio UDL Collaborative, I see that all the time with those folks. I seen that all the time with SST7 when you were there, and how you would put an agenda together, Barb, and you would have that focused goal, in the agenda, and then you would have your team members with the strengths that they had in the areas that they needed to be, and you would kind of coach or make suggestions until you had it exactly the way you wanted it, and you were getting specifically the things that you needed from each team member because you had the bigger vision that no one individual had, because you knew what you were after, you knew what the end game was. And even though your goal was laser light focused, the whole day was, focused also. Everything came down to specifics, and it was always amazing. And people knew it when they left. They knew when they left. They knew when they came in, it was going to be a day.
It's going to be a full day.
A full day. That's exactly right. Although you did let people take restroom breaks and lunches once in a while.
Every now and then.
Yeah, once in a while, if they were good. And they didn't say anything you didn't like. But, so, the strongest outcomes, I think, are those that are made in collaboration with each other.
Yeah. Yes. I think we have learned a lot in Ohio about what we call distributive leadership. Like, a leader is not defined by their role. A teacher is a leader. A custodian is a leader. Like, we have to look to all of our leaders in a system in order to get that goal met.
So true. So absolutely true. So, well, you know what? We visited leadership. We've just kind of touched upon, what we just a few things that leaders should have. And I think it really wrapped around what you were saying in the last episode too, about some of the things that you guys are wanting to see in your district at the beginning of next year. Just some interesting things, but it does take leadership. It does take people that speak from the heart, clarity, a great goal. I don't know. We could just go on and on, but
yes.
but what do you in your district? Is there a lot of shared leadership, or how does that kind of
I would say
distributive leadership?
It is shared. I mean, we have teams. We have team structures that provide input towards our district leadership. And we have a literacy team, for example. Each building has a building leadership team. We have teacher-based teams. So there's a lot of voices that are heard. And that has taken some time for everybody to get comfortable with, because if you're used to working in a place where that has not been the way it is, maybe some teachers are afraid to maybe share their voice.
Oh.
And so it depends on that environment and how safe that is. And I think too, the leader's role is to keep coming back to that goal and framing what you're doing around that goal. And that's one of the things that, we work on all the time. Like, we get bogged down by the minutia of the day or the district or the whatever, and we have to keep coming back to that clear goal. And I think that is the leader's responsibility to make connections for people. Like, this is why we're doing this, because it ties to our goal. Look, here's our goal. This is why, because that why is so important to get people engaged.
Yeah. Yeah. I've learned a lot. I always do. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Great topic you brought up. And I bet we're going to revisit this, because we just barely brushed the surface on leadership. So
We just barely did. So, we just need to get a guest on here that's really a strong, wonderful, very impressive leader. So that's what we'll do in the future sometime. We'll get their voice on here. So with that said, Ron's out.
Great topic, Ron. And with that, Barb is out. See you next time on 10 Minutes.
YouTube, please subscribe, like, comment, and share.